There's not much I can say about Andor that hasn't already been said on YouTube. Incredibly written, acted, and shot, this show is truly one of a kind in the Star Wars universe. For the first time ever, it felt like Star Wars had grown up with its audience, and in my opinion, this is the closest anything has felt to the original trilogy since some of the EU novels from the 1990s. And the audience agrees, boasting high audience and critic scores online, as well as what are seemingly high viewership ratings. But when taking a closer look, they may tell us a different story about the show's success. Welcome to Jargon. If you've followed my channel at all, you know I've done periodic breakdowns of the viewership data for all Star Wars TV shows. Waning viewership seems to be the story as of late, and while some headlines would have you think that Andor turned the corner on that, that doesn't actually seem to be the case. It's true, Andor topped the Nielsen streaming overall chart in its final week of airing, a feat that had only previously been accomplished by The Mandalorian Season 2's finale, but Andor's unique 3-episode per week schedule and longer than average runtimes significantly contributed to that. You see, Nielsen viewership is based on the minutes spent watching a show during a given week. Oftentimes you'll see older shows with large backlogs of episodes or Netflix releases that drop a full season all at one time topping these charts, for instance. And if you're wondering how accurate this data is, it's actually the best set of numbers that we could get aside from Disney releasing them themselves, which they refuse to do. Every single Disney Plus profile automatically has Nielsen tracking enabled, so unless you've gone into the settings to deactivate it, your viewing is also being tracked. What I do is total the run times for each show, minus the skippable recaps, titles, and credits, and compare that to the minutes that it's actually watched. As you can see, the 2 seasons of Andor are far and away the longest produced seasons, but they also cost the most. And when we break down the total minutes watched against the average runtime of each episode, we get the lowest number of individual watchers per episode of any of the Star Wars shows. And this appears to be kind of a continuing downward trend and a signal for a possible problem with the Star Wars brand as a whole. But let's backtrack a moment, because all the videos posted a week ago were celebrating Andor's topping of the original charts, and yes, it is important to note that during that week, Andor was on TVs for more minutes than any other show. But even then, the number of individual people watching it was still relatively low when compared to other Star Wars shows. Let's compare, for instance, with the only other week a Star Wars show topped the originals chart, The Mandalorian Season 2 finale. An episode that clocks in at under 40 minutes of visual runtime. That week alone, there were over 1.3 billion minutes watched. The episode was likely viewed by somewhere in the range of about 30 million individuals, and I think that's really the story here. When you're talking about 20 to 30 million individual viewers, you're talking Game of Thrones numbers. And why shouldn't a show for one of the biggest IPs ever created be able to compete with that? I'm not even saying 7 to 10 million viewers is bad. It's just bad considering the weight of this brand. You can literally see the goodwill with fans being lost in the data. Skeleton Crew was a pretty good show, but it performed horribly after all the controversy surrounding the Acolyte. I refuse to believe it wouldn't have been a much bigger success if it aired after something like Mandalorian Season 2. And Disney Plus has a very solid subscriber base, but even its biggest show, The Mandalorian, can't even come close to the heights that the flagship shows from other streaming services seem to reach. Why should Disney spend $300 million for a season of Andor when they can make The Mandalorian for $120 million and bring in 5 times the viewers? If you look at something like Stranger Things Season 4, it debuted with nearly 8 billion minutes watched, and that was just volume 1 of 2. You would have to combine the last 4 Star Wars shows for the entirety of their airing dates just to surpass those first week numbers from Stranger Things. Fallout on Amazon Prime was number 1 on the Nielsen overall chart for 3 straight weeks. Its first week, it clocked nearly 3 billion minutes. That's basically all of Andor over 4 weeks with 12 episodes. This Harry Potter show coming out in a couple of years on Max will probably be one of the biggest shows ever made. And that's HBO taking their biggest IP and giving the fans something that they've been asking for with the characters they love. And that's where I think Star Wars has failed. The brand is seeing diminishing returns, and you're blind if you don't see that. If you're at the point where you can make a show as good as Andor is, and the masses aren't watching it, people have already given up. But even with this loss of core fans, the word of mouth on Andor has been very strong. Viewership in both seasons 1 and 2 is growing week by week. Look at that versus something like Kenobi or Acolyte, which saw viewership declining as the weeks went on. Andor even succeeded in making the Nielsen chart the week after its finale had completed, with over 500 million minutes watched. Mandalorian Season 2 is once again the only Star Wars show that's been able to do that. Look at the Emmy campaign, the IMDb scores. Despite generally low viewership, the show has something that nothing but The Mandalorian has when it comes to Star Wars, and that's staying power. Even Rogue One charted on the Nielsen movie chart the week of the finale. If this brand is going to succeed and have a future, Andor is the kind of product they need to be putting out. And I don't mean that as in every show or movie needs to be geared towards adults. I mean the writing and the care that went into making it. This show is gorgeous in every single scene, and when you compare it to that horribly flat volume set from Kenobi, it makes the latter look like a fan film. Kenobi should have been a home run. It should have been given the care and funding that Andor received. If Lucasfilm could put out quality products consistently at the level of Andor, it would slowly win back the fan base. Many people who had given up came back to watch Andor and are still getting caught up on it. It'll be really interesting to see where it lands in the year-end Nielsen ratings, because even though it wasn't quite appointment TV for many, I think it's a slow burn that's going to continue on through the rest of the year, especially while there's no other Star Wars being released. We pretty much already have proof that the viewership is not falling off a cliff like it did with the Acolyte, but even then, I think it's just very unlikely that we ever see anything like this again. The investment was far too great, the returns were far too little. No kid is asking for Andor toys, and that's where the money is in Star Wars. We are getting a Mandalorian and Grogu movie for a reason. It's because of Grogu. But I'll be very interested to see how that movie does. It could be very fun. It could even look better than the show with a movie budget. But that's something where we're going to have to, wait and see. The thing is, we can't go in expecting Andor. But the bar has been set. We've now seen what Star Wars is capable of under Disney. It's already being compared to all the projects before it, and will be compared with everything to come after it. You better believe when Ahsoka Season 2 rolls around next year, those watching will compare Thrawn to the Imperials in Andor, the Imperials who were smart and competent. If they really wanted to get Thrawn right and set him up as the big villain of this New Republic era, they'd bring in Timothy Zahn to help write him. Andor is so unique because even though we had a general idea of where things would end, it still created stakes, and I think that's generally what's been missing. Do we really care about Kenobi and Vader fighting again when we know Kenobi will just walk away? Do we really feel like Ahsoka's in any danger when she's already been resurrected twice? Do we care about the New Republic when it ends in one swift shot in the sequels? A good writer could make us care. A good writer can create stakes. The IP is officially at a crossroads, and Andor may have just fractured the already fragile fandom beyond repair.